The finding of the Americas was a European accident. The Spanish government supported Christopher Columbus in 1492, as he sailed west from Europe in search of an alternative path to Asia. Explorers were looking for a quicker route to Asia than going south and around Africa. Instead of finding the passage to Asia, Columbus discovered a whole new land, which he mistakenly believed to be India. In his journal, Columbus recorded one of his admiral's descriptions of the new lands. "It appears to me that the people are ingenious and would be good servants, and I am of opinion that they would very readily become Christians, as they appear to have no religion." Another explorer called Amerigo Vespucci, who was supported by Portugal, sailed south of Christopher Columbus's expeditions and explored present-day Brazil. He was the one to realize that Europe had found a whole new land. In 1493, the New World, as it was called, was divided by the Pope in the Treaty of Tordesillas, when the tension of who would get what land escalated between Spain and Portugal. This line essentially gave Portugal modern-day Brazil, and Spain gained the rest of Latin America. In the 1500s, the Spanish quickly conquered the native tribes, including the Aztecs and the Inca. Due to their superior weapons, and the accidental introduction of diseases that the natives had not been exposed to before. Soon Latin America was colonized with governments that owed allegiance to the powers in Europe. The colonies in Latin America turned out to be very profitable. The land had many natural resources. The land itself was a natural resource, as it was very fertile. The European nations used this to their advantage, as they brought in never-before-seen foods to their continent. To work the farms, the Spanish colonists relied on slaves from Africa. Latin American natives also worked as cheap labor because they were poor. The Spanish discriminated against people who were not Spanish and those who were a mix of Spanish and native descent. The European powers ruled Latin America with an iron fist, making sure they had final say in everything and control of every last detail, even to what crops were to be planted. Raw materials would be shipped from Latin America to Europe for processing, then shipped back over. This is how Europe created another market for its goods. In the early 1800s, colonists were finally calling for change. Several leaders stepped forward to try and bring independence to Latin America. Simon Bolivar succeeded in bringing independence to the countries of Colombia and Venezuela. By 1826, all of South America was free of European rule. This left governments that had very little experience in making decisions and governing themselves. Soon military groups commanded by leaders called caudillos fought each other, and governments repeatedly continued to switch back and forth, leaving turmoil in the land. The governments eventually stabled out to military dictatorships, but the power stayed in the hands of the landowners. Around the time of World War II, many governments of Latin American nations looked to industrialization to become more profitable, instead of relying upon agriculture as they had for centuries under the European powers. Today there are many industrializing nations in Latin America. They have come a long way in just 200 years, but you can still see aspects in their culture of the time spent under European rule. In many nations, the official language is still Spanish, and there are very few native peoples left. While Europe took advantage of the countries in Latin America, it left a cultural impact that can be seen to this day.